Let's talk about why you haven't seen the progress that you wanted to in 2025 so far, and more importantly, what you can do about it. Now, you might think that this is a little bit of a clickbaity title, but I chose it for good reason because it's something that I hear from a lot of business owners, especially at this time of year as Q1 is beginning to end. We're realizing just how quickly a year can move in business, and we're starting to maybe have a bit of a panic that we haven't moved our business forwards in the way that we wanted to. We want to make sure that we catch that in action early and make some changes. Now, the first thing I'll say is that as business owners, we love to think in extremes. And my job a lot of the time as an external kind of advisor for my clients is to help people see that it's not always as bad as they think. A lot of the time I hear language like, the year is completely failed for me, or I've done nothing in Q1, or it's been a complete write-off. Now, sometimes that might be true, but more often than not, our businesses and the conclusions that we draw from them sit a little bit more at the middle of the spectrum, a bit more in the grey area, perhaps. So maybe you're thinking back to Q1 so far and reflecting that, there's been some good stuff, there's been some progress, but you perhaps just haven't taken the action that you wanted to. You've not seen the progress that you were expecting or hoping for. Maybe you feel a little bit disappointed in what the year so far has held. If that's you and you're willing to get compassionate with yourself and then curious about what you can do to help, then this episode is for you. Because I'm going to break down the three main reasons that I believe we don't see the progress that we expect to in our businesses, and more relevantly, what we can actually do about that. Because the worst thing that you can do when you realize that the year isn't going how you want to is decide that the whole year is a write-off. That is such an all or nothing way of thinking and of running our businesses. And I know it's a tempting mindset, but it's not a right fit. Imagine if just because by March we're not quite feeling like it's a good year for us, we decide the whole year is going to be a bad year. A bad quarter doesn't mean a bad year, in the same way that a bad day doesn't mean a bad week, or a bad hour doesn't even mean a bad day. There's something really powerful in business about learning how to draw a line and go, right, that was true for that season of time. I've understood why that happened, and now I'm going to draw a line and move forwards more intentionally and allow this next season to look and feel different. I know there can be this intense pressure around January to do all the big work, set vision, plan your year ahead. And there can be that feeling for people, I totally get it, of like, okay, well, I've missed the boat, so I'll just have to let the rest of the year be a write-off, or I'll just let the rest of the year kind of happen, and then I'll come back in Jan next year. Please, if I can convince you of anything in this episode, do not think that way. This year still holds an immense amount of opportunity for you and for your business. And I'm really hoping this episode helps you to think about how you can make the most of that and move forwards in the most intentional way. So without further ado, let me dive into this list, because it's three things that I think are incredibly easy to forget or get wrong, because we don't even know what it looks like to get it right. But the good news is they're also three things that it's really easy to take action in and make improvements with. So the first thing I would say is why I notice people are not making the progress that they want to, or just seeing the right momentum, is because their vision is either unclear or it's unaligned. When I think about growth in business, what I'm thinking about is how do we take the big vision into the day-to-day, right? The big vision of where you want to be in the long term of your business. Growth happens when we work out how to bring that into our everyday, when we make sure that our to-do lists are chipping away at that big vision. Now, that concept is relevant, but only if the big vision is first actually aligned. If the big vision in your business is not clear, or maybe it's clear, but it's not quite clear in the right way, maybe it's not actually the right fit for you, it doesn't feel right, nothing else is going to make sense. If you think about it like the kind of building blocks of a house, right? Your vision is the foundation. Your vision is what sets the tone for everything that's going to be built on top, for everything that's going to happen next. So almost kind of like Princess and the Pea, what can feel like a problem right at the top of the surface, it might feel to you like you have a problem with action taking or consistency or getting the right results, could potentially stem from actually something right deep down at the bottom in your foundations, in the sense of a lack of clarity. Now, this is something which I have so much compassion for people kind of getting quote unquote wrong, because A, no one teaches us this stuff, and B, when you're running a business, the vision is always evolving, and so sometimes it's not that you're moving towards the wrong vision, you're just moving towards an outdated version of your vision. A lot of the time when I'm working with business owners and they might share with me that they're not taking the action that they want to, or they're struggling with consistency, or they're not seeing results, Ultimately, what it comes down to is not a problem with the action, but the fact that what they're aiming towards isn't aligned for them. We're pushing through to try and open a door that isn't actually the right fit. Or because it's not a vision that we're excited by, we're not putting in the right level of consistency and grit and enthusiasm that's needed to see growth and success in that area. So if this is resonating for you, if you're thinking, oh yeah, maybe actually the vision I've got for this year isn't quite feeling right. I think a good litmus test for that is how exciting does it feel? If I were to say to you, where do you want to be by the end of the year? What's the vision for 2025? If you don't find something comes to the surface fairly quickly, doesn't need to be eloquent or, some polished sentence or one word, but just if you couldn't ramble to me your vision for the year and feel genuinely excited by that, I think that's a sign that we've got a little bit more work to do here. Because if we opt for a vision that isn't actually aligned for us, then everything else that we do, all the other things I'm going to talk about in this episode around our goals and our action, that's not actually going to be the right fit. So if this is resonating, my encouragement to you in terms of action here is to spend some time refining that vision. Maybe you didn't have any vision for the year, so this is an invitation for you to cast that vision for the first time. Or maybe you have a vision for the year, but perhaps something that's happened in the last couple of months has helped you to realize that vision's not actually quite right for you. If that's you, I would really love to invite you to go back and listen to an episode that I put out right at the start of this year, which includes 3 incredibly valuable and tried and tested exercises that I use in my business, with my clients, with my community to help cast vision. It's a completely free listen. It's something here on this podcast. And I promise you that is going to leave you feeling clearer on your vision, and not just feeling clearer on a vision, but feeling clearer on a vision that is aligned and exciting for you. Because that's something I think that often gets missed. We talk about this idea of clarity of vision, but we don't always talk about this idea of it being both clear and aligned. Vision has to be both of those things in order for it to serve its purpose of being that North Star that guides our goals, that guides our action. So, first point for you is that it might be because there is not enough clarity or alignment in the big vision that you have. And if you want to go and listen to that episode and do those exercises to help with your vision, I would heavily encourage it. I will link it in the show notes. The second thing then that might be why you're not seeing the progress that you wanted to so far this year is because you do not have an actionable and realistic plan. We're kind of working through the AB method here. You might have figured this out already, but the first step of the AB method is your vision. If you don't know what the AB method is, by the way, it's my own approach that I developed about 6 years ago and is incredibly tried and tested and helps business owners to organize their workload and make sure that they're working towards their big plans. Step 1 of the AB method is the vision, what we've just talked about, right? We've got to know where we're going. Step 2 of the AB method is your strategy. It's the plan, it's the goals, it's the what are we actually going to do to get towards that vision. And very simply, if you have vision, but no clear, actionable, realistic plan of how you're going to move towards that vision, you are just setting yourself up to feel frustrated and disappointed. Vision without an actionable plan of how you're going to get there is merely a gift to your future self of frustration and disappointment. I know that because I've experienced that cycle firsthand. I've seen it happen for many business owners. And let's get compassionate here. It's a really easy thing to do, right? We think that the clarity of vision is enough. A lot of the time as well, because when we're casting vision, we feel so excited and we're motivated and we're like, oh, this momentum is going to continue. I can just let it be now. But it doesn't quite work like that. We've got to have a plan in place for how we're going to translate the big vision to our action. And there's a few keywords here that I want to emphasize, because I didn't just say that it's a lack of a plan. You might have a plan, but that plan is not going to be working well for you if it's not actionable and realistic. I'm going to actually start with that second word there, realistic, because this is one that I notice a lot of people get stuck on. We are so used to in business being told to dream big and be optimistic, right? And especially when we're doing vision work, we're encouraged, and I do the same when I'm doing it with people, to think really big. Think outside of the realms of what's realistic, right? Go big. But we want to make sure that mindset isn't creeping in when we're coming up with our plans, because plans are not where we should be dreaming big. Plans are where we need to be really realistic with the capacity that we have, so that we are creating a plan that is actually doable for us. If you build out a plan, if you set goals, if you create a strategy which isn't actually realistic for you to implement, you're falling at the first hurdle. You're giving yourself, an impossible task. No wonder you haven't seen progress so far this year if you keep setting yourself up to do more than you're actually capable to do. A mantra that I always say to myself and to my students when I'm doing this work with them is set goals that are going to stretch you, but not stress you. Because here's the thing, a crumb of that overambition is relevant here. I want us to think a little bit big. I want you to do more in the next few months than you would have if you didn't have a plan. But I don't want you to have a plan so big, so fast-paced, that it's ultimately going to lead you to a cycle of inaction, frustration, disappointment. So having a plan that feels realistic is not just going to set you up for success, but it's also going to set you up to then do more over time. Because once you've achieved one plan, then you get to move on to the other. And it might feel backwards, but actually when you make a plan or a goal smaller, you're more likely to see more progress in the bigger picture because you're going to do that, gather momentum, and then be able to keep taking the next step from there. So my question to you would be, is your plan realistic? Have you set yourself up with goals and strategies for the start of this year which were actually doable for you? Because if you didn't, that might be where things got a little bit stuck. And then the other side of that is that other word of actionable. So have you created something that feels actionable? I talk about this a lot in my program On It, which, by the way, doors are opening very soon. So you want to make sure that you're on the wait list because it's genuinely doing all of these things for you and with you, so you don't have to try and remember all of these things, but I'm there to guide you through it. In On It, when I help people to set their goals, which at the beginning of Q2, I'm going to be doing exactly that, helping everyone in there to set their goals for Q2, I will say to them, set goals that are based on action, not results. It is very tempting when you're setting goals to think about results, right? The money that you want to make, the clients that you want to generate, the growth that you want to have. And if our brain goes there first, that's absolutely fine and very normal. But a goal that is based on results is not actionable and therefore is going to be really hard to work towards in the day-to-day. If your goal for Q1 was to make X amount of money, but you didn't pair that goal with any kind of clarity or plan around how you would make that money, I'm just going to say it, no wonder you didn't make that money. Because just focusing on the results that we want is not going to create those results. We have to reverse engineer it and also think about the action we're going to need to take in order to get that result. So when we are setting plans, we need to think about those two things. Is it realistic and is it actionable? You might want to even now look back or think back to the plans that you set at the start of this year. Maybe it's your marketing plan. Maybe it's the goals that you set for Q1. Maybe it's just the things that you expected of yourself day to day, week to week. And to ask yourself those two things. Is it actionable? Is it realistic? Because it might be that you notice, okay, everything's actionable, but I'm not being realistic with it. Or maybe it's the other way around. It's realistic, but it doesn't actually feel tangible and actionable enough. These mistakes are so easily made. That's why I'm so aware of these things. And I know they show up for every single business owner, myself included. So I want you to know I'm not sharing any of this through the lens of like, you're a bad business owner, you've failed, you should know better. You don't know better because no one teaches us this stuff. It's quite literally why my job exists, is to help make these things known and give people that support because no one teaches you these things. And if you can work against some of these mistakes, you see progress and momentum so much quicker. I can say that from personal experience, but also even just over the year so far. You know, I've had over 100 people walking through this process in my group program On It. And it's been amazing to hear people saying, you know, I'm making quicker progress more than I would have ever before because I'm following these rules, because I'm doing things in the right way. So that is the second thing I wanted to share that might resonate for you. Maybe you're not seeing progress because your plan is not actionable enough and because it's not realistic. Or maybe you just don't have a plan at all. Maybe you're like Alice, it's not even that it's not actionable and it's unrealistic. It just doesn't exist. In which case, maybe that might be where things were a little bit off. That then moves me on to the third and final reason that you might not have seen progress in 2025 so far, or at least as much progress as you might have wanted to, which is that you didn't get the habits in place. Habits are the backbone to your progress because they are what will ultimately support your action in the day-to-day. I will never stop banging the drum that having vision, setting goals, creating plans does not grow your business. Your action in the day-to-day does. Plans don't create growth. Action does. So you might have listened to this episode and thought, well, I've got the vision, I've got the plans. Maybe this is where you got a little bit stuck, because the vision and the plans mean nothing if they're not followed through with action. So what I want to ask you as this final point is, are you supporting yourself to take the right action through your habits? I love the quote by James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits. Fantastic book. If you haven't read it, I feel like it's one of those books that everyone's read, but if you haven't, it's a great one. And he has this quote, which I think really sums this up, which is that we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. So what he means by that is just having goals does not create growth. It's actually the systems, and in this case, what I'm going to be talking about is the habits that really hold you up in order to achieve those goals. When someone says to me, Alice, I've done step 1 and 2 of the AB method, I've got the vision, I've got the goals, but still nothing's working, the question I always want to ask them is like, let me see your calendar. Let me see your to-do list. Let me come and follow you for a week in the life in your business and see what you're doing. Not because I don't believe people that they're not trying, but because I think the magic, the backbone, is in the day to day. Your habits around how often you're checking back in with your goals. Your habits around how often you're looking at the metrics and the numbers and the KPIs and learning from them. Your habits around how organized you are around the key tasks within your business so you get more time to work on the business and do these things. All of those habits built together, providing they're the right habits for you, allow us to take the consistent action. Of course, in order to take the right action, we've got to have that vision, we've got to have those goals, but we can't rely on momentum or motivation on its own to really drive the action. We've got to have those systems, those habits in place that really support us. Whether that's a habit of accountability, whether that's the habit of external support, like joining my group program on it via the link in the show notes perhaps, or whether it's more of those day-to-day habits and looking at how you organize your time, looking at how you set yourself up for the day, looking at how and when you complete on the business tasks. It's all of those habits that really add up and allow you to take the consistent action. It is so sad to me to see people do those first few steps, have the vision, have the goals, and then kind of like fall at the final hurdle, which arguably is the most important hurdle, which is the action. So if you're feeling like you've kind of got those other two things, you've got the vision, you've got the goals, you've got the plans, but still nothing's really happening, what you'll want to then be analyzing is, why is your action getting stuck? What is it around your habits, around your time management, or maybe around your mindset? Like, what is it that's creating inaction? And then what could you maybe do or bring in that's going to help you with that? I am genuinely not just saying this for the sake of it. If this episode is resonating with you and you're like, Alice, I wish I could just have you in my ears every month, like helping me do this stuff in my business, that is quite literally what my group program On It is. It's been running already throughout the whole of Q1 this year, and it's just been amazing to see the momentum that people have gained through having that kind of expert guidance, dedicated space, accountability, and really the knowledge that you're doing everything the right way, that you're not going to make some of these mistakes and then, lose progress because of it. So if you are interested in joining us, the doors are opening really, really, really soon, and they're not going to be open for long. So if you're listening to this episode around the time that it comes out, I urge you, if you're interested, to head to the show notes and join the waitlist to be first in line. It is a program that I really love hosting because it is so simple but so impactful. So if this episode is resonating, you may just want to go and join the waitlist there. But of course, the other thing I'd invite you to do is to take some action with what I've shared. One of these 3 points will likely have resonated with you the most. So please don't feel like you need to go and change everything off the back of this. Think about one next step that's right for you. Do you need to go and listen to that episode with the vision exercises? Do you need to go and check in with your plan and see whether it's realistic and actionable enough? Or do you need to look at your habits and your day-to-day and how you're supporting yourself to take the action? You know yourself and your business best. So have a little moment with yourself right now to check in on, what do you need? What is the next step that's going to be right for you? And please make the time to take that action. The fact that you've got this far into this episode tells me that you are serious about picking up the momentum for your business this year. And your future self will be incredibly grateful for you taking the kind of inspired and right fit action off the back of this. If you feel that you've maybe been gently called out or that there's an action step for you, I would love to hear it. The numbers from this podcast are great, but really what I care about is the impact and the people. So hearing your thoughts on the episode, what's resonated, what you've done because of it, genuinely makes my day. So don't hesitate to come and pop me a message wherever we're connected online. Make sure to subscribe or follow the podcast wherever you are tuning in. If you haven't come and joined me on YouTube already, please hit subscribe. If you're listening to this episode, you can find the link to YouTube in the show notes, not only because I'm going to be sharing the podcast there, but also for the behind the scenes vlogs. There are currently 2 vlogs live sharing the behind the scenes of hosting a big event and also a retreat. So if you love the nosy behind the scenes like I do, you're probably going to like those vlogs. But there we have it for another episode. Head to the link in the show notes as well to join the waitlist for On It, and I'll be back in your ears next week. Bye.